And so we welcome Jane, who is Zooming in with us from Kansas. And my Zoom, you have something you want to say?
Yes, if to let for Sister Jane to know the name of the people.
Yes, yeah, that would be good. You know, let's pause the recording just for a second, and then let's.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. It's great to see you, at least see you virtually. So I'm really glad to be here with you. I would be really happier to have you be here with us in Kansas because that was the original plan before all plans got changed. So, but you may not be too sad to not be with us today because it's about 95 right now. So, but a little about me. I've been a Dominican sister for a fairly long time. You can tell by my hairdo, and I've been in the ministry of ecological ministry for let's see, probably about 25, 28 years, something like that. So I've been at this particular ministry probably longer than I've been at most. I'm also a spiritual director and have worked in retreat centers and done worked with spiritual direction training programs too. So here at Heartland Farm, where I minister, it is a place for people to come and learn sustainability, but it's also a place where people can come and retreat and take time off and all of that sort of thing. So it's a good match for my skills and experiences. I was 16 years at Shepherd's Corner in the Columbus area, and you may have heard about that a little bit. And I'm just kind of really a Kansan by translation, let's just say. I'm not I'm still learning about Kansas. I've been here 12 years now, and it's always surprising. So, and I had to talk about the weather because it's what we do here. It's always one of those things that is an opening conversation, no matter who you are and where you are. And it changes momentarily. So that's always a good, if you can't talk about today's weather, you can always talk about something that happened a year ago that was really spectacular. So, but rather than weather, I'd like to share with you kind of the practical side of what you may have heard this morning if you were tuned in with Sister Claire McGowan and the Universe Story. It's the ecological story that we're all a part of. And I think you got a little taste of it from her presentation. And I don't know if we'll go deeper, but we will go more toward all right, what does that mean if we're all connected to this wonderful, amazing universe? So that's what I hope to share just a tiny bit with you today.
Sorry, 1 second. I forgot to start start something. Hold on a second. Sorry. Technical challenges. I needed to share the sound so you can hear it properly. Okay. Here we go again. Okay.
Let this be our prayer.
Yes.
I'm going to just say a few things about today's topic, or my part of that, on ecology, and really best make it more practical in terms of, all right, what does that look like among Dominicans, among the Dominican Sisters of Peace in particular. And as I mentioned before, I've been kind of, we Dominicans have been involved for over 30 years now. But even before that, more than 50 years ago, before many of you were born, the ecology movement was stirred into consciousness on a variety of global fronts. Already people were beginning to notice the distress signals that Earth was offering, and knowing that it is caused by our human impact. The first Earth Day was celebrated in the United States in 1970, promoted by Republican Wisconsin Governor Gaylord Nelson. It was a teach-in in the 70s. At that time, when you were speaking, Ashley, about the, bridging those gaps, there was a lot of consensus. And if you look at the various presidents who were in office when these laws and like environmental laws and so on were passed, they were both parties. It wasn't a polarizing issue. There was a lot of agreement. Religious women at the same time, particularly inspired by the work of Thomas Berry and that whole universe story, began to study the universe story, and lots of environmental expressions in religious congregations emerged. One of the earliest was Genesis Farm in New Jersey, founded by the Caldwell Dominicans, and in 1980. And then many more congregations developed specific ecological ministries particularly suited to the region in which they were found. And true to the Dominican charism of action supported by deep contemplation, much reading, thought, collaboration, and prayer. All of these farms, study centers, eco centers, retreat preserves, and places of modeling and experiential learning were founded, all around the similar times, all very much influenced by one another. We talked a lot with one another. We visited other centers. I'm still on a Dominican Alliance Eco-Justice Committee that is been meeting for 20 years. And we're still producing materials to help educate and engage people in our congregations as well as the broader community. So all of these efforts are, and they've developed and adapted over time, are looking at the emerging needs of now. What was true in the 70s was a kind of an emerging awakening. What we're looking at now is an investment in the long haul of the future that we can't even imagine. We call it attending to the signs of the times. And if we look at our times now, there's plenty of signs out there that are speaking to us. So that is the constant of our ecology centers, of not just kind of coming up with a program and not paying attention to, let's see if somebody comes. It's about looking, where's the need right now? What do people need to understand, experience, and learn to live into? So personally for me, my inaugural moment of matching kind of what I always had deeply sensed about the truth of that's manifest in the natural world that I probably had since a little kid, And putting that together with my mainline Christian understanding, came at a conference in Fargo, North Dakota, when I was ministering at a retreat center in Minnesota. And it was an ecumenical retreat center, by the way, too. The conference was held at a Lutheran college, and it focused on the intersection of religion and ecology, kind of a new concept back then. And I heard speakers like Wes Jackson, John Cobb, Jane Blewett, and many others, who spoke eloquently about how their faith informed their passion for Earth. And I found that at last I'd met my kind of people. Theologians who saw the planet as God's revelation, that it came, as Thomas Aquinas says, both in the book of nature and the book of the scriptures. And another aspect of that were biologists who took their cue from the scriptures about making feeding the hungry a quest for perennial grains and a sustainable agriculture. Eventually, in 1992, my Dominican congregation embraced statements about earth awareness and subsequently established an eco-center in central Ohio, Shepherd's Corner. Other congregations, Dominican and all over, were doing the same thing. So here we are, in the urgency of our day today. And we have many of the same issues that were before us some 30 years ago. Maybe now more widespread, more impactful, more ominous, perhaps. So even with a popular pope like Francis addressing an entire encyclical, Laudato Si, 5 years ago, and the plight of our common home, we seem still unable to take significant action on a global scale. I'm not blaming or finding fault. I'm just saying what a challenge this is for us, to take this seriously and personally, I would say. We witness the foot dragging at best, or the downright denial at worst, of the powerful global entities to take this very real existential threat seriously. And so that is the call I feel that Pope Francis and our other leaders and very small voices that have just had a big impact. I think of Greta Thunberg as one of those, a schoolgirl from Sweden who challenged the world to take the issue seriously. And then there's the reality of the COVID-19 threat that has kind of shifted all of our understandings about things, including this retreat. The early astronauts' vision of the fragile blue planet, that kind of iconic picture of Earth that we probably all somehow have in our consciousness now, has shown us how intimately we connected, even though we're trying to stay 6 feet apart. There is this irony that we are experiencing right now, that has us yearning to be able to just go, hug somebody in our family or go visit friends who are another state away that we are not supposed to be going to. We feel that on a personal level, but I think we've yet to feel it on this global level that we need. We begin to see the sky now that we've stopped using so much oil and fossil fuels, clear blue skies all around the world, especially densely populated urban areas, are seeing the sky for the first time, clear blue, breathing the air that you don't have to wear a mask so that you don't breathe that air. There's an awareness that this whole COVID thing has invited us to somehow wake up and notice. We realize that our global, as I mentioned earlier, food supply is broken and it's unsustainable. So, and not to mention unjust. So local food now begins to make sense. If only we knew how to garden or cook, as so many people, especially in our country, don't know yet. So and then there's the term essential and non-essential workers that we've labeled. We've redefined what that means, even though we haven't yet proportionally compensated people for that essential role that we claim. So I guess another reason for hope for me, that despite the real losses and fears and issues around this pandemic, we may just be rediscovering our earth-grounded reality. We may just see this as an evolutionary moment in our history as a human family, forcing us to evolve into a collaborative, compassionate, human family, human organism that we've always had the potential to become. So just a thought to ponder, would we get here without the force of the events of our day? Because for most of us, we don't want to know what's wrong with us until we're forced by the symptoms that manifest themselves. And I think we're in a time where we're being forced by our symptoms to look at our racism, our neglect of the poor, our neglect of the planet. And maybe that's a good thing for us to be doing. So now I think more than ever, our ecology centers that have been preaching and living and demonstrating these values are all the more important to our ministry as Dominicans. The efforts at true sustainability are beginning to make sense in our world, and we have the opportunity to help people learn just even the practicalities, but also to learn the why of it. Why does this connect to our faith? Why is this an expression of Christian values? What indigenous people have always known, that we humans are just part of a larger system, delicately and elegantly balanced in a divinely inspired harmony. What if we saw our world that way? And knowing that we aren't the masters, we're the curators at best. We don't know it all, or own it all, or control it all. We're at a time where I think we're humbled by our hubris that has taken a hit from a tiny virus. And this is a moment, I think, that is maybe helping us stretch into what's next for us as a human family. This wisdom that has been percolating for a long time I think brings us to the brink of transformation. And as we know from our spiritual wisdom, transformation is not easy. It is a difficult, often painful, and a perilous process. But I do believe that we can look to our small but beginning efforts to understand and to live in a reverent and sustainable way as much as a way to bring that much needed hope as we face our future. I think personally, but I think it's beginning to resonate in our consciousness that our ecological ministry has never been so central to the future of our world. So if anybody has a comment or question or response at this point, be glad to hear you share that. He's a Franciscan friar, writes in the National Catholic Reporter. He says our world has a problem with imagination. We can't imagine what a positive future would look like. We can't imagine what equality would look like because we're so stuck in what we've got. And so we have a drought of imagination. So I challenge you to use your imaginations to think about these issues in really broad terms of what would our world look like if we took some of Francis's integral ecology really practical challenges to our lifestyle, our politics, our education, our commerce, our daily life, our relationships. What would our world look like, function like? So then, and then June just noted the 3 and 4 questions, and these are again personal kind of reflections. So you don't have to answer them all. There's no right answer to these, but it invites you to kind of think broadly and deeply. And then when you've spent some time with, I would suggest really just one of those questions that really attracts you. There are some activities that you could spend your afternoon doing. If it's possible, at all possible, go outside. I can even go outside when it's 95 out. It's not fun, but it also reminds me of our global heating that is going on. And spend some time just reflecting on whether it's you're looking at your own lifestyle, the American lifestyle, putting yourself in the shoes of somebody else in the world, and trying on what it would be like to be practicing integral ecology, whatever that means. Maybe spend some time chewing on that from the previous questions. Integral means you can't get along without it. It's absolutely necessary. So those questions might give you some things to think about. And there's 2 more activities in 3 and 4. If possible, if you have the opportunity, actually do something. Actually go water something in the garden. Actually get your hands dirty. Actually pick up trash in the neighborhood. Actually do something that connects you consciously to caring for the planet, caring for your brothers and sisters, being a part of the natural world that sustains you.
Yeah.
I particularly recommend gratitude for each thing that you encounter that sustains you.